So Lords of the Fallen 2023 is out and you want to know, should you buy it? So Lords of the Fallen came out last week and it's been met with mixed reviews. It's sitting on a 76 on Metacritic with a 7.2 user score, so it's pretty mixed across the board. So I just want to talk about it in the video to let you know, should you buy it? Let's kick off with performance. I'm playing on PS5, so my performance has actually been quite good. I only really dropped frames on the first boss, which I think it's called Pieta. It's technically the second boss because there is a tutorial one, but I don't really count that one. That was been the only time I've really had any sort of frame issues with it. But I know on Xbox and PC, it's been pretty bad. I think some people on PS5 have actually had quite a bad experience as well, so just seems across the board the game just isn't optimized very well. But the developers are working hard to push out updates and try and get the performance up to par where it should be. So overall for me, in terms of performance, I would say I've had a good, not a great experience. So the first thing I actually want to touch on in the game is the Umbral world, which is a kind of new mechanic that they've brought in, where there's two worlds being rendered at once. You have this lamp that you use and you can see the other dimension, or if you want to call it that there. When you die, you go into this dimension, so it's like a second chance at life. And as you're in it, the longer you're in it, there's like a wee eye at the right hand side. The longer you're in it, the more enemies is going to keep on respawning and keep coming after. Not respawning. They're going to keep spawning and coming after you. And there's like a wee experience multiplier at the top right as well, so it can go up to 3.0. I think that's the highest I've had it anyway. So that means the enemies are going to get harder and more frequent. But you're also going to get more vigor, which is the souls equivalent, if you want to call it. So it's kind of like a wee bit of risk reward. So you can go into it and you can farm in it as well. But you can also come out of it. So if you die and you go into the Umbral world, there's these wee skeleton things. I'm not even sure what they're called, but it brings you back to the living world, so it gives you like even another chance. So that's you back to the living world. You die again, you go back to it. Well, something I wasn't actually particularly keen on whenever I first started playing, because it was like, oh my god, this is just going to be an annoyance. It's just going to piss me off. It's just an extra mechanic that's not needed. But the more I played it, the more I actually learned to enjoy it. So there's puzzles and things like that there as well around the map there that you can see. There's extra hidden stuff you can see when you go into the Umbral world, or even if you're just shining your torch up, you can see the world there. So you can see like there's certain bits you'll come to where there's hidden bridges that you can only see when you're in the Umbral world, which you can actually use to your advantage if you're in combat as well. Because if you know there's a bridge beside you that's in the Umbral world, you can bait the enemies onto it while you're holding your light up, and once they're on it, you can let go and they'll fall down to whatever holds underneath and die. So you can kind of use it to your advantage in combat. So definitely the more I used this mechanic, the more I got used to it and really started to actually enjoy it. So let's get into the combat itself. I actually think the combat is quite good in this game. I went for a strength build and it's actually quite fast when you compare it to other games in the same genre like Dark Souls and Elden Ring, things like that. So in the end games, when you're a strength build, it's usually quite slow and quite heavy, whereas I definitely feel like I'm a lot more mobile and agile in this one using the strength build. There's a parry system, a perfect parry system, which I still haven't quite got used to just yet, but it is there to utilize. There's also like a standing dodge if you just tap circle or B if you're on an Xbox, and you'll just dodge immediately out of it without using the directional buttons. You can also just do the traditional roll, but certain enemies like the first boss Pieta has like quite a long range on her swing. So if you're doing the roll dodge, your chances are you're going to get hit by it. So just using the tap one, it makes it just an absolute breeze. So I think the combat, although very good, it just doesn't have the finesse and the perfection that you get in FromSoft, but it is good. So moving on to the enemies, I'm actually finding the enemies to be okay. Your normal enemies are easy enough, but you can get surrounded quite fast, and you need to be aware of your surroundings at all times. There's also quite a lot of projectile throwing enemies, so they can be a real pain in the ass if you're not managing them properly and managing where they are and where you are at all times, especially if you're being surrounded. You kind of need to try and get them all in view, maybe try and block out the projectiles, so it can be quite tricky and actually make you think about it, what you're doing, which I like. The more elite style enemies is what I would call them, the kind of bigger buffier ones. They're quite difficult. There's these guys with buckets on their head. The certain area that you're in, they are just an absolute pain in the ass because they keep hitting you off. You've very little room to actually maneuver with them, and they take a chunk of damage. But I wouldn't say annoying difficult. Like, I am happy enough with the difficulty in all the enemies so far. Now let's get into the bosses. So I've done about 5 of the main bosses along with a couple of side ones, and none of them have really given me any bother. I don't think there's a fight that I really remember for being, oh, this is class, like you would in a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring or a Sekiro. There was one that really pissed me off, and it was actually just a mini boss. And I hate it when you get a boss and it's just annoying for the sake of being annoying. It's not hard, it's just there to actually wind you up. And if you've played this game, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It's the one with the dogs. For the life of me, I just could not do it. It took me well over an hour to actually beat her because of them stupid dogs. And before you think, oh, get good, I am good. It's just when the boss is there and they just make it just to absolutely fucking annoy you. You know the boss is easy, but there's just add this mechanic, which just so happen to be the dogs that are constantly chasing you. You have to kind of manage them and manage the boss itself. But when I actually beat her, it wasn't that kind of feeling that you get when you beat a boss and you're like, oh yes, happy days. I was stuck on that for a while. I finally beat it. It was just pure anger after I beat her. That just wasn't a good feeling at all. It was just like, fuck you. There's also summons for the boss fights as well. They would appear after your first attempt. You'll see like it looks like fellers pretty much of the silhouette of who the character is that's going to help you. So that is there if you need it, if you want to use it. I don't know. I haven't used it yet. To be honest, I didn't see it. It was my friend that was telling me about it now. So I don't even know if they're OP, if they're any use, if they're not worth using at all. But it's not something that I personally use in these games. I kind of find them more of a hindrance than anything half the time. But let's get into the world design. So how is the world design? I think the world is quite good. It's quite linear. You don't really ever get lost. There's quite a lot to explore, especially with using the Umbral lamp. And if you actually could just fully go into the Umbral world, there's quite a lot of different things to see in there compared to when you're actually in the real world, and it connects quite well as well. The shortcuts that I'm getting are nice. They're quite spread out. They're not too frequent because I think I recently played Liza P and they were just giving you shortcuts for the fun of it. It was just constantly every corner you went there was a shortcut, which I mean it's more accessible, but sometimes it just gets too much. Whereas I feel like in Lords of the Fallen, it's just the right amount. I haven't quite got that sense of interconnectivity yet that you would in Dark Souls, but maybe I'm just a wee bit early. What I will say is after I beat the first boss, you kind of go out into a wee bit of an open area and you can see these beams in the sky of where you need to head. So I'm assuming maybe you get to them kind of areas and you can look back and you can maybe see the wee castle grounds that you were at where you fought the first boss. That would be pretty cool. The more I play this game, the more I am enjoying it. So do I recommend Lords of the Fallen 2023? Absolutely, yes. I think it's phenomenal for what it's doing. I think it's a great effort at the Souls-like genre. But should you buy it? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say wait until they get more patches out. They are patching this here as fast as they can. They're trying to get performance up to where it should be, and I get those quality of life improvements in. I know recently, well, in the review stages of the game, there was things like your weight management wasn't there properly, so you couldn't actually see where your medium load is and your heavy load was. Your full attack power wasn't there either on your weapon, so you couldn't really see what kind of damage you were doing. You had to kind of work that out for yourself. So I think maybe wait for a sale, maybe end of November, December time. You'll probably be able to get it for £50. It's £70 at the minute, so it's quite steep, like. But personally, I would wait. So if you're playing Lords of the Fallen already, let me know in the comments what your experience has been, how the performance has been for you, what you think of the combat, all that good stuff. Don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe, hit the bell. It all helps, and I'll see you next video.